Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dhanashri. I am postdoc here in IISER and one of the organizers of this symposium. And to get this symposium started, I would like to present what were our motivations and our thoughts while organizing this symposium. So, first, let me welcome all of you and thank you for being here on behalf of all the organizers. And so this is the third iteration of this symposium. So first one was arranged in NCBS Bangalore, and second one last year was in CCMB Hyderabad. And this year we got the golden opportunity here at IISER in our hands to organize it. And together with our colleagues from NCBS in STEM and IISER postdoc volunteers, we have tried to bring very engaging and value-adding program for you. So, what is the biggest question in front of postdocs, apart from your real research question and whether your grant money is coming on time, etc.? The biggest question is what is next after your postdoc. So, as we know, most of the PhDs aspire to have academic research careers, but it is estimated that less than 10% of actual PhDs or postdocs land academic independent researcher career jobs. So, and on top of this, scarcity of opportunity in academia, we never get trained to, defend ourselves in the both academic as well as non-academic job markets. Also, we live in a bubble and we never network outside of our close circle. And on top of that, we failed or rather struggle to realize the value of our PhD, and as a highly educated person ourselves in the extra academic or non-academic job space. So these are all the important questions that postdocs face, and keeping this in our mind, we designed a program where we asked two main questions to ourselves. So what are different career avenues that are present or that are available for life science postdocs, and what information should be presented to them to help them pursue these paths. Another feature that we wanted to add was keep more interactive sessions. So we have more panel discussions and less research or science talks this year in the program. So to list some of the highlights of the program, we have 5 panel discussions. There are panel discussions about career in academia, career in industry, career as an entrepreneur, and also addressing postdoc issues as well as issues of women navigating academic job market. Apart from that, we have career talks. So we have career talks from various fields: medical writing, career in education, career in science policy, data analytics, science writing and journalism, and intellectual property rights. We have 4 workshops: grant writing workshop and manuscript writing workshop, and the one that I'm really looking forward to myself is interview skills and resume writing workshop. Apart from that, we have very inspiring keynote addresses as well, organized on each day of the symposium. So the postdoc issues panel, which is going to happen today, is a flagship panel discussion or flagship session of this symposium. And We hope that you have brought a lot of questions and your opinions to share today, because keep in mind that this is an exclusive platform to bring our concerns forward. Uh, Apart from that, I would just like to remind you that the success of this symposium entirely depends on your active participation and your enthusiastic involvement in all the panel discussions. Remember, this is our platform, and don't hesitate to ask questions. If you think your question is very basic or very silly, then think that 10 other people are thinking of it. So please ask it, and you will be doing them a favor, basically. And in the end, uh, the aim of, or rather, aim of the organizers is to make this event a mainstream event and organize it every year. And this should evolve as time goes, according to the needs and expectations of postdoc community. So your feedback is most important. So we will give you online feedback forms, but apart from that, uh, you can give us feedback in any form. You can tell us personally, you can write email. Any kind of feedback is really welcome. uh, yeah, so that is the message from organizer sides that I wanted to give. And before leaving from here, I'll just like to make one request, that if at all you're going to post about this symposium on social media, that is the official hashtag. And if you use that hashtag and also tag the involved institutions, then it might get retweeted from the official accounts. So with this, we'll move forward.
So we're going to start with Professor Jayant Udgaonkar inaugurating and giving a talk, a small introduction to our postdoc symposium. I'll give you a brief background about Professor Jayant. Professor Jayant Udgaonkar is the director of IISER-Pune since 2017. He graduated from University of Mumbai in chemistry and microbiology. He completed MSc in chemistry at IIT Madras and PhD in biochemistry and applied physics at Cornell University in New York. After a postdoctoral fellowship at Stanford, he joined National Center for Biological Sciences, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Bangalore as a reader in 1990. His lab focused on protein folding, unfolding, and aggregation. Over the 17 years at NCBS, Professor Jayant held different roles and contributed to the growth of NCBS in its early days. He has won several awards and honors, including the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award for Biological Sciences, J.C. Bose National Fellowship, and Senior Research Fellowship by the Wellcome Trust, and also the G.N. Ramachandra Gold Medal by the CSIR. He was the Dean of Faculty at NCBS for 10 years. Professor Jayant is also a Fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, Indian National Science Academy, and the World Academy of Sciences. We welcome Professor Jayant.
So, welcome to all of you to IISER-Pune. I'm very happy that IISER-Pune is hosting this postdoc symposium. Uh, and I hope that many of you will benefit from all the discussions which will happen over the next 2-3 days. Uh, I believe there are science talks and also several panel discussions on various issues which concern postdoctoral fellows. Now, I'm supposed to inaugurate this, and I generally hate inaugurating inaugural events, and I don't really know what to say. And I feel guilty because I end up not spending much time at what I'm inaugurating. But since I accepted this, I was trying to figure out what to say. It so happened that in the morning I had to give a talk on the issues faced by PhD students, and I'm completely confused. So, uh, so let me just ramble on, and if there are a few questions afterwards, I'll be happy to answer them. So, my lab over the years, I've been 27 years at NCBS, not 17. Uh, so now it's nearly 30 years of having my own lab. My lab has been principally driven by PhD students. I've had very few postdocs over the years. And There are reasons for that, but in any case, I've dealt mainly with PhD students. So, and when you deal with PhD students, you give lots of advice, and it so happened that 2 years ago I was asked to talk on the equivalent organization symposium for PhD students. So I wrote down all the things I said to my students over the years and put it all in one talk. It's on the net now because my students were very amused at my giving all this advice in one shot instead of in small little pieces. It's on my website. But so that was called advice to PhD students. And I don't know whether I'm supposed to give advice here, but at that time, one of my students who had just got her PhD and was going for a postdoc said, "Why don't you write something for postdocs too?" I said, "It's nothing different. The same thing I've uh, said or written for PhD students applies to postdocs too. So, you could read that. I don't know how much of it really applies, but there is a difference between being a postdoc and being a PhD student. And as you all know, as a postdoc, you're far more independent. You have to worry far more about the future than when you are a student. And that's not something easy for many people to cope with. Uh, so you have spent, you all know that when you're a PhD student, you have spent 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years in one particular environment. You have a whole set of friends there. You've gotten used to the place you've been, and suddenly you have to go to a brand new place, a brand new environment, no friends, very few friends sometimes, new advisor, someone perhaps of a completely different personality. Uh, so you lose the old and you have to get familiar with and completely unfamiliar new. And that's really very difficult. At least I'm trying to remember what was difficult for me 35, 33 years ago when I went for my postdoc. And that to me was a big, big difficulty to getting used to a new environment. Um, I had a PhD advisor with whom I interacted every day. My postdoc advisor would come for 1 or 2 hours every afternoon and then go back home. And so the interaction with him was really very minimal. So when I did interact with him, there would be these long pauses in the conversation because he didn't know what to say and I didn't know what to say. So long pregnant pauses was really the defining feature of our interaction. But very early on, he said something to me which made me realize that I better get to know exactly what I needed to do on my own. He said that I realized the only way I can help you is to refer you to the old literature. And that really was, something which set me on my own independent path because I realized then that I had to do everything on my own. Uh, he didn't like spending money, so, and when I said I needed to get something, he said, "Well, this much money is more than I've spent on my lab in the last 10 years." So then, which wasn't true, by the way, but uh, so then when I had to, that was the first part of what I had to build. And then the second part, I decided I can't ask him because he'll just say no. So I decided I had to build it myself. But that's part of your education as a scientist. You learn to do things on your own. So in this case, I spent 2 months building the electronics for the equipment I had to build in the workshop. Uh, so it wasn't easy getting started, even in a place where uh, which is probably was at that time probably the best department in the world for biochemistry at Stanford. And you're doing things which are different because for the first 2 months I didn't pick up that pipette person, a pipette man. So my colleagues around me were saying, "What are you doing? Are you doing any work?" And but it took time to get going, and it's part of getting into a new environment, learning new things, and trying to master what you need to really know. Now, a big question is when you get into a postdoc, you really have to plan how long you want to spend on a postdoc. You can spend 3 years, you can spend 2 years, you can spend 5 years, of course, depending on whether the funding is there. You can spend 7 years. Now, how well you do is really in your own hands. It, in many areas of science now, I think this is mainly a biology group. Uh, Biology tends to take longer, but really that amount of time you take is in your own hands. You can take it easy, you can really work hard and do things in a shorter period. And the goal should be to do things as quickly as possible. Uh, because as many of you would have started off doing a postdoc with the intention of getting into an academic career, and if you're actually going to get an academic job as a faculty member somewhere, you're going to have to be able to really push things very hard right from the beginning. So, the postdoc period is the time you have to get used to pushing yourself very, very hard. If you don't do it, then you're not going to do it when you're a faculty member, so you might as well not plan on getting a faculty job. So, the idea is that you try and spend, perhaps aim for 3 years, or so that at the most you'll go to 4 years. If you don't plan it that way, you'll end up spending very long postdocs. And, it's easy to say, but these type of experiments take so much time. But if you plan yourself well, you can do it in a shorter period. Because remember, when you apply for any job, the numerator is always the level of accomplishment, and the denominator is time. And, the one denominator is always increasing. And you have to get the numerator as high as possible in as short a period of time as possible. Uh, so you have to try and get it into a time frame where you're still relatively young when you apply for your next job. Uh, so many institutes prefer hiring, uh, academic institutes prefer hiring younger people in their early 30s. Some institutes or universities have well-defined rules, written or unwritten, about age limits at which they stop hiring assistant professors. And you have to, you know, meet the requirements of the places you want jobs in. So, uh, you, and if you're, for example, going to be doing an academic job, you have to, I think it's my experience is that if you come in younger, you have more enthusiasm, you're able to push things harder as a faculty member, and you're going to be able to achieve more and achieve things faster. If you come in your late 30s, it's going to be more difficult. You have other issues, worries to deal with at that age, and it becomes more difficult to start a good productive lab. So, just from the perspective of starting a productive lab, it's best to start it at as young an age as possible. Uh, so, the postdoc is a tough period, as you all know, mainly because you have to worry about the future. Uh, Now, you have to worry about not only what type of job you want to do next, whether you want to do another postdoc, which I would highly advise against, uh, it's very strongly advise against, or you take up a job in research, either in a university, institute, or industry. And you have to by then you would have figured out, hopefully you'd have figured out when at the end of your PhD itself, whether you're cut out for a faculty job. Now, uh, at that stage, very often at the end of a PhD, many students don't quite realize what a faculty job entails. But as a postdoc, you must make sure to try and figure out what a faculty job entails. It might, it's far more difficult than what you might think. And you have to figure out whether you're cut out for that. You can't define these things in any objective manner, what is required. And you got to figure out what, whether you have what it takes to become a faculty member. You have to see whether are you able to teach others, are you able to think of problems on your own, are you able to identify, very importantly, tractable problems you can uh, you know address in a short term, other problems for a longer term. you know I don't know how many of you wrote your postdoc proposal. That's a proposal uh, when you took up your postdoc completely on your own. you know uh, I mean, of course, you might have got feedback from whoever's lab you joined, but did you do 95% of it, or did you do 30% of it? Um, did you just take a proposal from the lab you're joining and rewrite some part of it, or did you do something original? Because that tells you whether you're cut out for being able to define problems, identify what those which are tractable. That's very, very important. Doing research in an academic place is, the money is not the problem, really. Ideas are the problem, by and large. Uh, Money very often is just the excuse. Uh, you People can normally get what they want, and most places now are funded well enough. And in biology labs, in many places, people um, are friendly enough to each other that getting access to instruments and equipment is not a problem. The problem I've seen in many cases is ideas are not there. And the reason ideas are not there is that people don't read enough. So, if you want to get into an academic career, you have to ask yourself, how much do you read? How many papers have you been reading the last week, the last month, previous 10 months, 1 year? And if you don't have that good data on that on yourself, you really should figure out whether you're meant for an academic career or not. Um, so, so how do you plan for the next step? Your first thing, I think many of you would want a job in an academic place. So if you decide you're not cut out for that, then how do you decide what next? I mean, even for an academic job, you're not really trained. You're not really trained to manage a lab. You're not trained to write proposals. You're not trained to be a psychiatrist to your students, which is a large part of being a faculty member. Uh, so, you have to, I think symposia such as this will give you the wherewithal to make the decision about what the alternative could be. And whether it's science communication, science management, or managing facilities. Uh, Managing facilities, unfortunately, as many of you are aware, in our system, the way we operate is somewhat of a caste system. But that's slowly disappearing. I think the value of facility managers is being recognized more and more. And it's something which I think many of you or others could really do well. And it's something you should consider very seriously. Um, so that planning is really very important. Uh, if you are doing an industry job, many people who join industry end up doing what they're told. And Indians are good at that. Uh, but if you, again, in industry now, industry is looking for people who can initiate projects on their own. And there also you have to be, on top of things to be able to identify projects which will work in an industry setting, uh, and will meet the requirements of the industry, that industry wants. So I don't really want to say much more, uh, other than just wishing you all the best, not just for the symposium, but for the future. And if you have a few questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I have to go for lunch. I haven't had lunch yet. Yes. Oh, yes, it should. Very much so. Uh, we, I mean, from the perspective of a faculty member, that is certainly very true because, I mean, the selfish reason of a faculty member would be that because postdocs are independent, they don't have to put in as much time and effort with a postdoc as they have to do with a PhD student. But the reality is that, a large fraction of effective research done in all over the world is done by postdocs. And that is not the case in India. It should be the case in India too. There should be uh, a much more larger fraction of research done by postdoc. I mean, one reason why it doesn't happen is because funding for postdocs is difficult to get. It's for very limited time, and it used to be at a low level. It's now become not too bad, and the problem is, of course, the number of fellowships which are available. That is small, and that needs to increase. But I think postdocs are, I think, essential for labs to do very, very well, and they bring in new skills to a lab from outside, which otherwise are not easy for a lab to acquire. And that's really very, very important for any lab. Um, so there should be far more postdoctoral research happening in the country.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So this symposium is co-organized by IISER-Pune and National Center for Biological Sciences in Bangalore. So Professor Jayant is the director here, and the director at NCBS, Professor Satyajit Mayer, couldn't come, but he sent a written message which I will read out to all of you. And just a brief background of Professor Jitu. So Professor Satyajit Mayer is the director of NCBS. His lab focuses on mechanisms of membrane organization and endocytosis. He studied chemistry at IIT Bombay and was awarded his PhD in life sciences from the Rockefeller University in New York. He worked as a postdoc at Columbia University and joined NCBS in 1995 as a reader. So, greetings to all of you gathered here at this third National Postdoc Symposium at IISER-Pune. While I am honored to be invited to this self-assembling and bottom-up effort, I am sorry that I cannot be with you today in person at this symposium. I have a previous commitment that I was unable to alter. The life science research ecosystem does not have a very large postdoc community, and therefore what you are doing today will have tremendous influence on the future of the culture of postdoctoral research in this country. Given its small size and early organizing efforts, such as this one, it is a huge opportunity to change the way postdoc research is conducted in India. This is because we can learn from some mistakes that have been made in countries where the main workforce for research in PI-driven labs are postdoc fellows. A number of abuses of this system has created a very long and unstable route towards an independent research opportunity for young scientists. The average age where a researcher may get his or her independent grant is almost 40 years in some countries. This symposium is not only a forum to discuss your exciting science and showcase the same to a number of researchers who have traveled far and wide to interact with you, but it is also to discuss best practices of how postdoctoral research in this country may evolve. I am hopeful that if these are articulated well and at the early stages of the growth of this postdoc community, many of the pitfalls faced by postdocs in other countries may be avoided. I can assure you that with India Bioscience as a partner of the symposium, you will have a willing platform to help with these efforts. Many of you may wish to move to the next academic position as an independent PI or a leader of an advanced core research facility. And leaders from a number of research institutes and universities are here to interact with you to provide guidance and showcase the opportunities they may offer. Some of you have expressed reservations about not finding job opportunities because you feel that postdocs who have worked abroad have better chances of succeeding. I feel that your anxieties may be somewhat overblown because if presented with similar levels of accomplishments in research, most institutes would prefer to hire postdoc researchers who have worked in India in independent positions, since you would certainly have a better idea and be better networked in the Indian context. However, not all of you may see independent positions as a best fit for your considerable skills. With the involvement of industry R&D, startups, science communication and journalism, a number of opportunities are presented to young postdocs who may wish to explore careers in science, but not working directly in generating research outputs. These avenues are hugely underrepresented in our country and present wonderful opportunities to create a major impact. With these words, I want to thank the organizers of the third postdoc symposium from NCBS and IISER-Pune for giving me an opportunity to pen down my thoughts and share the same with you today. I must congratulate all of you for the success of the past two symposia. We were delighted to host the first one at NCBS. I am equally happy that this year it is being hosted in Pune, and perhaps the next year it can circulate to the north or the northeast. Have a wonderful meeting, and I hope to be there in person the next time. At this time, let me wish you success in your personal endeavors and congratulate you in your efforts to create a healthy community of postdocs in India. We had also invited Renu Swarup from the DBT. She couldn't make it either, and she sent a recorded video which we'll play for you. I'm sure all of you are aware of who Renu Swarup is. She is the secretary of DBT since 2018. She's been there for 29 years, and she's instrumental in starting the BIRAC program with the DBT to help nurture startups and entrepreneurship endeavors. She has a PhD in genetics and plant breeding, and she did a postdoc at John Innes Centre, Norwich in UK, under the Commonwealth Fellowship. And she returned to India and joined as a science manager in DBT in 1989. So I'm going to play a video that she has sent.
A very good morning to all of you, and congratulations for hosting this National Postdoc Symposium. This is a wonderful idea, and I believe that you've been doing it for the last couple of years now, and moving just from an NCBS symposium, you have taken it to a pan-India symposium. This is really great. It's a wonderful initiative because you can get together all the postdocs across the country, get them to interact with senior faculty, senior researchers, officials from the ministries who can share with you what the various schemes are, what are the various opportunities. But most importantly, you all can meet amongst yourselves. You all can collectively discuss what really are the future priorities, where do we stand today, and where collectively the country needs to move forward. What really is our vision for the next few years? The reason I say that is because postdocs are a very, very integral part of the entire research ecosystem that we have within the country. The research capacities that we build depend heavily on what you contribute. The postdoc research culture within the country has to really now move forward, bring in the best practices globally, and also we need to work out a very well-defined strategy and a framework in which we could optimally utilize the best capacities that we have. The Department of Biotechnology has various opportunities through which we support the postdoctoral students. Of course, our own research projects where we have postdoc positions on them, our autonomous institutes which again offer postdoc positions, but then our RA scheme that we have, a limited number right now, but we would really like to see many more students availing that. And I think it's also important for us to see how we can integrate this to the best of the institutes across the country. If you look at the way we support the human resource development within the country from DBT, we support the star colleges at the undergraduate level. We then have our postgraduate studies that we support across over 74 institutes right now. Then we have the JRF fellowships, and then we have the RA fellowships. Of course, we have a lot of skilling and training programs that we provide opportunities for, be it the industrial training opportunity after your post-graduation, or these skill Vigyan centers that we are now establishing, where we provide the student fellowships as finishing schools. We provide opportunities for technician training. We provide opportunities for faculty reorientation, and of course the entrepreneurial positions that we have. DBT also has a large number of career development awards, and as of now we have the IYBA, which is an opportunity in which the postdocs could apply. We are now actually looking at creating a new fellowship scheme just for the postdocs, which would be an independent grant for the postdocs, which they can have for about 3 years, and depending upon the progress, move it to 5 years. The details are being worked out. We are hoping that very soon we should be able to launch that. That is again an opportunity we hope we can provide the postdocs to be able to take up independent research projects with mentors, of course, to help them to be able to build their career and move forward. While these opportunities exist for those fellows who are within the country, we do have other opportunities like the India Alliance DBT Welcome Fellowship, the Ramalinga Swami Fellowship, opportunities in which we can bring in people from outside as well to work here. Now, having said this and having talked about the various opportunities, it's important to see, as I said right in the beginning, what is it that the postdocs contribute to our research ecosystem. As I said, the postdocs are a very integral part of our research ecosystem. All the projects that we do, we know that the research strength and capacities rely very, very deeply, and we are totally, in fact, looking at how we can work with the postdocs to take this forward. And there's a lot of work that the postdocs do which contribute to the success of those programs. So it's also important then we engage with the postdocs when we look at where is our future research going to go? What are our future directions? What are our future priorities? Where do we see India as we move forward? We are now currently developing our roadmap for the next 5 years. We know that there are opportunities for India to be one of the global players in this whole sector. Biotechnology for sure. because the data that has come out clearly gives us the indication that the biotech sector is growing very, very rapidly. But then what are we going to do? Are we just going to look at moving and taking an incremental growth rate, or are we looking at an exponential growth rate? For that, we have to take risks. We have to bring forward our research competence in new, emerging and disruptive technologies. We have to see how we enhance greatly our innovative content of the research that we do. It's also important that we see where we stand today. Today we are looking at the whole startup ecosystem becoming again a very, very important component of this whole research, innovation, translation ecosystem. How do we get the academic institutes and also most importantly the universities to come forward? How do we get them to interact more with the startups? How do we get them to interact more with the industry? I think we have to look at this very, very holistically. The postdocs cannot see themselves as just one segment sitting within research institutes and doing their research. The postdocs are an integral part of this entire ecosystem, be it the universities, be it the research institutes, and I would actually like to see postdoctoral fellowships and postdoc students working very closely with startups and with industries as well. We have some of these social innovation and other immersion fellowships that we give for short periods, which are like postdoc grants. So I think it has to be a combination. If we have to move forward, we have to think differently. We have to think out of the box, not just for our research ideas, for the models in which we can engage with postdocs. I would very much like you to discuss this and come back to us. Give us your suggestions. We are currently, as I said, looking at only bringing in new schemes, new fellowship opportunities, which provide you the fellowship grant, but also give you an opportunity to have an independent project. Can you come back and suggest to us, how do we look at new models of engaging with you so that you contribute to this entire basic, fundamental, applied, translational research, connecting it to the product development, which is of immense societal importance. So I would leave it here with you to discuss. I really miss this opportunity of being with you personally, but I hope I can have continued dialogues with some of you and maybe on other occasions with many of you. I will wait to receive from you your note, and this should really come from the postdocs as to what is it that you feel we need to do if India is to move into the next phase of its growth. How do we engage with you? What really are the priorities of research that we take on? We're talking about innovation clusters now. We're talking about knowledge innovation clusters. How do postdocs engage themselves in this? How do we move with you to take forward our international collaborations? So immense opportunities. Use this wonderful opportunity to discuss with your peers, amongst colleagues, with your seniors, with the policymakers, and let's put together a wonderful roadmap, a strategy, a research framework with which we can move forward in the next couple of years. So good luck, and I wish you all success.